Hey, welcome to Common Sense Cafe, where the coffee is cold, but the topics are hot. We're here today. So, hey, I wore my patriotic shirt today.
Yeah. Yeah.
I gained a little bit of weight. That flag used to be about that big. It's stretched. That flag big now.
I've got to that little flag on my hat. That's all I got as far as something like that. I need to.
We need to go out and rent us some like Halloween costumes with, like Uncle Sam top hat. Yeah,
we got to do that one time.
It's all about appearance.
Did you see the patriotic mask and what else is on our Facebook page now?
I didn't see that one.
You didn't see that?
I didn't look at it today. Did you just go on there today?
No, put it on there yesterday, I think.
Oh,
but patriotic masks and that somebody you can buy, and what else? One of those, I don't know. There's some patriotic stuff on there. Should go look. Okay. What?
So
go ahead.
Topic for today.
Yeah.
So we're going to do a 15-minute sprint. This is the sprint. We've been doing some marathons. We're going to do a sprint.
I barely go up 2 flights of stairs and I'm out of breath, so we'll try to sprint here.
We're going to do 15 minutes, and we've got about 13 left. And our topic today is going to be the biggest news story this week, Supreme Court Justice vacancy and the passing of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. So who wants to start? You want to start?
Go ahead.
Okay. So certainly our condolences to her family. She was no doubt precious to those who were around her and everything, and our condolences to them. Anybody's loss. Our concern would be now, that she was eternally right, and hopefully there was a time where she was able to make things right with her maker. In her passing, it leaves this tremendous void. Now, if there ever was anything that should prompt us to vote in this election more than any other we've ever voted in, is the potential for the nomination to fill her seat. And I don't know if people, I'm sure they do, but I don't know if people understand that the most important thing a president does is nominate a Supreme Court justice.
Right. They're there the rest of their life.
And their interpretation of the Constitution and interpretation of law impacts what happens in our lives. Mm-hmm. More so than even a presidential directive or whatever. So let's talk for a minute about the history of Ms. Ginsburg's voting history. Let's talk about that for a minute. So she was part of what they call the liberal bloc. And understanding that correctly would be that she voted in a very liberal manner and a very liberal interpretation, which would be a very flexible interpretation of the Constitution and of the laws that are passed through legislation. So some of the major things that she was involved in, one would be, she was nominated by Bill Clinton, that old good old governor from Arkansas. That boy, I tell you what. But he nominated her. She was the nomination went pretty smooth. She got on the Supreme Court fairly smoothly. One of her big issues was women, supposedly women's right or gender rights and so forth. So she was major. She took a major role in U.S. versus I think Virginia in the Virginia Academy, military academy that was men only. It was a male only school, and they voted that down and couldn't do that. She also was big in same-sex marriage, in so much so that even before all 50 states were same-sex marriage legal, she was doing weddings, same-sex marriage weddings and everything.
Hmm.
She was institutional in voting for and being vocal for same-sex marriage law being passed in all 50 states. A federal law saying that all 50 states had to recognize same-sex marriage. She was also part of some other major issues. Like one was the striking down the law that said if a person, if an immigrant or a foreign national convicted of the crime of violence, they could be deported, and she was against that. What I take
She
from
did what
her
to that?
vote,
She voted
huh?
for that or against it?
She voted against that. She didn't want them deported. Here's my thing with her. I would say that she was very much federal government centered versus local and state government centered. So state government versus federal government. Federal government, and she basically, through her voting, you could see that she thought the federal government should have more control. And I'm just the opposite. I think that the federal government should have the least amount of control over our life, where the state government would have a greater say than the federal government. So your thoughts on that?
Well, I think one difference in the, and for lack of a better way to describe them, the more conservative justices versus the liberal justices. The conservative justices, the ones we consider to be conservative, they look at case that comes before them and they say, how does this line up with the intent of the founders of our nation, the Constitution and the amendments that are in the law? How does this case line up with that intent? Liberal justices view it as, how does this case stand in the culture that we have today?
Yeah, I would agree.
They view it more.
And therefore, the basic definition of conservative versus liberal would be: conservative would be a conservative view of interpreting the Constitution. A liberal would be a liberal view of interpreting the Constitution, or a flexible view of interpreting the Constitution.
Yeah, conservative view says we're going to stay as close to the Constitution and the amendments as possible, because we don't need to be setting laws. We need to just be interpreting the laws that are there.
Exactly. So legislating from the bench is what that's called, making law versus interpreting law.
And the liberal side tend to say they expand widely. They give themselves, like you said a while ago, a lot of flexibility in how they can judge. It doesn't necessarily have to be according to the Constitution and the intent of the founding fathers, because that was they see the Constitution as a evolving.
They call it a living document.
Yeah, a living document that they can change by popular opinion, by the culture today.
And here's the problem with all of this is that somehow or another there has to be a balance, because we wouldn't have the Louisiana Purchase because there's no constitutional authority given to the president to purchase property. Yet Thomas Jefferson goes out and buys, the Louisiana Purchase from the French for what, $1 million or something like that, I think.
I think it's $27,000, wasn't it?
Oh, I don't know, something like that. But,
no, maybe that was Washington D.C. They bought for 20. I don't know. I can't remember. Some ridiculous.
But they.
He could
you do have this conservative look at the Constitution, which I feel like I'm a constitutionalist. I believe I'm conservative in my understanding and interpretation of the Constitution. I like to feel like that I'm on that side of the line. But do I look back and point my finger at Thomas Jefferson and say what a criminal to break the Constitution that way? So though and we say this because we know that there has to be an interpretation of the Constitution. We understand that. We're not saying don't interpret it. We're saying that it needs to be done conservatively. It needs to be done where there's a gray area, err on the side of literal understanding of the Constitution versus on that flexible.
And like you say over and over, you're a states' right rather than federal rights, and I am too. And what that means is that we have to remember the Constitution was written for a group of individual states, and it was a governing document that said this is how we can all work together. It doesn't mean that they didn't set out to write laws for every state. It was how do we combine your laws in your state with your laws in your state? How do we give a minimum guidance and oversee? How do we an overseer? How do we give the minimum direction that will unite us, but yet also give you the states the freedoms to create their own laws? And they were doing that. Even Lincoln was doing that because they were allowing certain states to be slave states, certain states to be free states. The war, the Civil War was, and I don't want to get far off on this. I'm not saying it didn't have a lot to do with slavery. It did, but what the Civil War really came down to, what was the final button, was the secession. The United States and the president, the government, would not allow states to secede, to leave the Union.
And the reason for that was because that voting power in the legislation. Everything was about voting power in the legislation. New states were coming in. They wanted them to be slave states. They wanted to be non-slave states because it created voting power in legislation. We got 2 minutes left on this.
Okay, topic. when you've got a state centered or push the authority down to the state, states can create laws that can even go somewhat far away from the Constitution, or they can be very liberal with it. But the problem is that liberals want to not only create laws in their state, but they want to force their opinions on everyone. They aren't happy just having their rules and their laws and their ordinance in their city or their state. You have to think like I think. You have to abide by.
But of course, they accuse us of the same thing. They accuse the conservative evangelical Christian. They accuse us of the same thing, that we're wanting to push our conservative Christian views. The difference is it has to come down to which morality, and we can't get into that right now, but it does have to come down.
Long subject. Hey, one question before we go. Okay, we're talking about filling the Supreme Court seat. Should it be filled now? Should they wait till after the election? What's your opinion?
Well, whenever there was a Democrat in office, I said he shouldn't fill that seat. I think right now we should fill that seat.
Right. Exactly. And
it's what I think is best for the country, though. That's what I think is best for the country, is a conservative on there. So.
Right. But whether it's they call, there's, of course, everybody in Congress is a hypocrite to some extent or another. But the rather than it being a hypocritical procedure by going ahead and taking a vote, taking the nomination, taking a vote on the justice and passing it now before the election, the difference is, and the Republicans, I've listened to a lot of them, and they've tried their best not to say this. It's about power. If you have the power, you get to make the choices. If you don't have the power, that's why Obama didn't get to nominate and pass
because
a justice through before
Right.
the election is he didn't have the power of the Senate.
well, he didn't have the votes for that. We're out of time. We're a minute
Okay.
over, so we're gonna have to wrap this up. We'll come back to this subject matter
Yeah.
some other time. So let's talk real quick. Common Sense Cafe blog.
Blog.
BLOG blog. Common Sense Cafe
Sense
blog.
And sense is with the E, not an I. if you're challenged like I am,
So go to that. Look the page over. You'll find information. I think there's some bios on there about us. There's some
trying to step up our game a little bit.
Yeah, there's some videos on there from quite a while back. How many videos are connected to our website right now? Do you know?
I think 20.
20. Okay, and in those, we cover a range of topics from stuff like having a successful divorce to, raising children, being grandparents, a lot of different subject matters. So,
And we got about 5 that are ready to edit and put and download. We just have to. I'm a little slower at learning technology than I used to be. So
we had to get us a producer. We had to get us a producer. If you're out there and you're willing to invest in Common Sense Cafe with your time and energy and your talent, get a hold of us. We're looking for an editor or a producer. All right. All right. Any final? What else is on the website? So our bios, our videos.
We're going to have some links to, just like I put on Facebook. We'll have some links to some merchandise. It's just merchandise we think is pretty cool or pretty, it's nothing that we haven't said. We're not saying, hey, this product's going to last 30 years. It may tear up tomorrow when you buy it.
Yep.
And we're not endorsing the item. We're just saying, hey, this is pretty cool. And if you buy it through the link on our website, we may get a nickel.
Oh, is that right?
Well, if we sell about 10 of them, we may get a nickel. But
I need a nickel. So
that pays for our fancy background.
Sets, I see you're on vacation today.
Yeah, I tell you, I got a blank wall behind me, and our last video said I was in New Orleans. Well, that was 2 weeks ago. I live in Nashville now.
On the move. All right, well, we're going to wrap up this video. It was good visiting, and I think it was an imperative topic to go ahead and address, being the season we're in. So,
hey, let's get that vote. Get that.
Yeah, absolutely. This
on
is
the
the time.
Supreme
This time to get them. And listen, remember that you're not voting personality. You're voting a platform. Our platform is conservative, and if you're a conservative, financially, or fiscally, or constitutionally, or whatever, you have to vote that platform, not personality.
The personality be gone in 4 to 8 years, but the results of that platform will be here possibly
longer. Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to wrap this up. It's been good to see you there in Hawaii. I hope you enjoyed or Nashville. I didn't know Nashville even looked like that. It's hot out here. All right. Well, this is I'm Jeff.
Kevin.
And we're gone. Take care.